How's it going, YouTube? Got FourthStarTCG here, and today I'd like to talk about the Pokemon market. We've had a lot of really interesting movement in the past month or two, and I think it begets another analysis. So basically what we have is a tale of two markets. We have, largely speaking, of course, we have the pre-2003 market, your WotC cards, Neo, that kind of stuff, which is decreasing in value, especially first edition base set, unlimited base set, significant decreases there. And then you've got the post-2003 market, your EX series, Diamond and Pearl, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, even XY, Black, White, that kind of stuff, which is holding steady or even increasing and continuing to increase in value. So a lot of people, they've taken to Pokemon is crashing and sort of throwing up their arms and, giving you clickbait thumbnails like the one I'll put on this video. But that's not the case. And, you have to look at this sort of tale of, largely speaking, two markets. There are exceptions to every trend, and we'll go into this. But seeing everyone sort of throw up their arms and say that Pokemon is crashing is kind of hilarious because, obviously WotC cards and first edition base set are not the entirety of the Pokemon market. And historically, they have not moved in direct turn with everything in the Pokemon market. So what I'd like to do with this video, give you a recap of what's happening in the market for both that pre-2003 and post-2003 era, explain why I think we're seeing what we're seeing, and then look a little bit towards the future. So what we are seeing with the first edition base set in pre-2003 era, it can really only be described as a significant loss of value, especially when you compare it to the highs in November, December. So just for example, PSA 8 first edition base set Blastoise in November sold for $28.6 thousand. Just this past PWCC, it's down to 5.8K. So you've lost 23 grand on your PSA 8 first edition base set Blastoise from November to now. Now, of course, if you are sort of holding from back in January 2020, you're still significantly up on almost all first edition base set cards. So it's important to keep that in mind, that in the grand scheme of things, we're still significantly up over time. But first edition base set Charizard PSA 10 last PWCC Premier auction, that ended 240,000. PSA 8 first edition base set Charizard in the last PWCC auction, 2 copies sold for I think $11,500 and $12,500. So again, down significantly on those cards. Your sort of lesser first edition base set cards, Zapdos, that's down under $1,000 in a 9. It's down under $6,000 in a 10. Magneton, down under $1,000 in a 9. So seeing that again, seeing first edition base set holos down under $1,000 in a 9 is really interesting again. And it's not just limited to first edition base set, unlimited base set decreasing as well. Surprisingly, not as much as first edition base set, but still decreasing. Unlimited base set Charizard PSA 9 down to about $1,100, $1,200. Your jungle cards, Jungle PSA 10 first edition, those down significantly. Snorlax, that kind of stuff, really seeing a significant decrease in those cards. And even your E-Series cards, those kind of cards, seeing a significant decrease. People just being able to win those cards for much less than they thought they would, given the current market, even if there wasn't just a ton of sales of certain cards out there. So, of course, there are exceptions to this rule. BGS 10 first edition Lugia, that sold for, assuming it's paid for, I'm not 100% sure on that at this point. It's just a couple days since the PWCC ended, so can't be certain. But if that is paid for at $144,300, I think was the final price, that's going to well eclipse the $129,000 PSA 10 sale and the current market value, so to speak, for PSA 10 first edition Neo Lugia at, I think it's around $70,000 to $80,000 for that card in a PSA 10. So there are exceptions to this, obviously, but the large trend is that those pre-2003 cards going down in value fairly significantly. But that's not the case with post-2003 cards, again, largely speaking, exceptions to this, but things like your sort of lower-end trophy cards from the post-2003 era, Championship Arena, Mysterious Pearl, those cards. We saw, I think, for a 2005 Championship Arena, the Mew Celebi PSA 10, that was $15,000, and I know that was paid for. We saw, I think, an $8,000 sale for the 2006, the Dialga Palkia Championship Arena. Mysterious Pearl, again, seeing a meteoric rise over the past couple months. And it's not limited to trophy cards, it's set cards as well. EX era largely staying fairly consistent. $2,000 for Rocket's Mewtwo, that's been the price point for a couple PWCC now. Very similar with a lot of other Rockets EX, those have held steady. And even in the black-white, Heart Gold, Soul Silver era, you're seeing continued rises. What I was bidding on this past PWCC was, as I sort of mentioned in one of my just recent videos, was PSA 10 black, white, full arts, and ultra rares, and I lost all of them. I thought I had competitive bids. I was, bidding higher than these cards had ever sold, but still going up in value. Some of them I was very close on. Some of them, surprisingly, I wasn't that close on, which did surprise me, as I thought I had competitive bids for all of the cards I was bidding on. But that just goes to show that, you can't paint the market with a broad brush, and again, largely speaking, post-2003 cards are holding their value, if not increasing. And again, exceptions to this, again, one that I have done a video on is Fire Red Leaf Green Charizard EX PSA 10. That's down 50% over the last couple months. So obviously not every card is following this pattern, but largely speaking, that's what we're seeing in the market. So the big question here is why is this happening? And I think there are multiple reasons for this, all rooted in the sort of key aspect of supply and demand, but also another concept I want to bring in here, which is available buyer pool. So supply and demand, we've seen a massive amount of supply, like hitherto undreamt of supply for first edition base set. Just every PWCC, every month, you're seeing lots of first edition base set coming up for auction. Again, I don't really know why. I think it's a combination of the after effects from those massive price rises, people trying to capitalize on that. I also think it's an after effect for a lot of people who weren't necessarily experienced in Pokemon getting in and paying high prices for cards, and then perhaps realizing that, oh, maybe this isn't the quick money maker that I thought it was. So then they're selling their cards. You've got, people who dug up their old first edition base set, sent off to be graded quickly. That's coming back now. Really just a lot of cards are hitting the market for first edition base set. And, the demand has ebbed a lot since November, December, when we saw those peaks. I think the reason for that is, times change, and there are ups and downs to every market. There are ups and downs to prices, ups and downs to demand. I think right now we're seeing a decrease in demand for first edition base set cards. People who wanted them have them. The people who wanted to invest, so to speak, in these cards, they've either purchased them and decided, oh, okay, gonna sell, or they're sort of they're away from the market now. They're not actively buying more cards. So I think it's that kind of effect on the supply and demand. Increased supply, decreased demand has led to decreased prices. But as I mentioned earlier, first edition base set is still the most expensive Pokemon card set. It's the biggest set card set. and it's the sort of the Mac Daddy of the hobby, so to speak, and that has not been displaced. So, you know, PSA 10 first edition base set holo still multiple thousands of dollars. Like Charizard PSA 8 first edition at 11.5 grand is nothing to upturn your nose at. So with that kind of stuff, when the prices are that high, there's a limited amount of people who are able to pay those prices. So this is one of the main reasons why I think that the pre-2003 market, we're seeing a decrease, while the post-2003 market continues to go strong. That is that the post-2003, there aren't a lot of cards that really reach up into that echelon of first edition base set where like everything is multiple thousands of dollars in a 10, big cards being over 10 grand and an 8. And the buyer pool for those cards is limited. So you can have an outsized effect if too many of those people decide, you know what, not going to participate in the market at this point. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing a couple of enough people being sort of frightened off or not participating in the current market to drive down prices. Now, if comparatively that happens with post-2003 cards, certainly could be happening now, just, you know, people leaving the hobby, people, you know, the general trend of interest going up and interest going down. But since those cards are lower priced, they're more able to weather the storm, so to speak, because there's exponentially more people who are able to drop $200 on a PSA 10 card in black, white, XY, that kind of thing, that are able to drop 11.5 grand on a PSA 8 first edition base set Charizard. So because of the wider buyer pool for post-2003 cards, due to the prices just being lower, those cards have not seen the significant decrease that pre-2003 cards have. Another reason for, I think, perhaps the big rise in these trophy cards, sort of the lower end trophy cards with the championships arena, is just people really recognizing the volatility of set cards and the stability of trophies compared to set cards. So I think people, perhaps the investors, might be moving their money out of set cards and into these trophies, thinking that they're going to be stronger long-term prospects. And again, whether that actually is the case remains to be seen, but trophy cards in the past have been relatively strong. Whether that extends to things like the, you know, the non-number 1, 2, 3 trainers, you know, your victory ring, you know, your championship arena, that kind of thing, that is yet to be seen. But again, that's only something that time is going to tell. So what can we learn about this for the future of Pokemon? Well, sort of the most important thing is to not, again, as I mentioned in all of my videos, don't paint the market with a broad brush. There's a very clear division here, and if you aren't understanding that clear division and looking at cards individually, looking at the driving factors behind each different segment of the market, and, you know, I've sort of talked about the large trends, but again, within those there are micro trends. Everything is interesting in the market, and you really have to look at it very carefully. But what can we learn? We can learn that, you know, buying at such crazy prices can come back and bite you. Now, again, people were saying that prices were crazy in March of 2020, and if you bought in then, like I did on a lot of cards, you're way ahead now. So timing that peak is incredibly difficult, and knowing, okay, when is the rise going to stop and when is it going to go down? Timing that's just frankly near impossible. But, you know, being careful and always going in with a mindset of buying the card for the card, not buying the card for the sole purpose of investment it's going to, I think that's always the answer, because you're never going to go wrong. If you don't care about the prices of your cards, you are always going to come out ahead of someone who is, fretting over every single turn in the market. And, looking at these shifts, it's certainly possible that the same thing could happen with post-2003 cards, where the demand falls off, where the supply significantly increases. Or we could see the opposite happen. We could see the supply dry up from first edition base set. There are already people talking about, like, wow, first edition base set is like now a buy at these prices. People are saying, okay, I'm going to start bidding up and buying these cards again. So we could certainly see the prices increase again. And again, you have to remember that over time, first edition base set, if you look, so you take a zoomed out view, still way up over time. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this. Most significantly, make sure that you understand what's happened in the past and apply it towards the future. So again, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, don't go out there and say that Pokemon is crashing, because it's not. Very specific aspects of the market are in a downturn, but not everything. The WotC market is not the whole market. There are other cards. So thank you very much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stick around for more videos.